Bismillah. Bismillah translates as, in the name of Allah, and is taken as one word. With Bismillah begins any prayer. Without Bismillah one does not sit down at the table. Mama, can I go to Arthur's for lunch? Jamal ran into the house with these words. And it was his mother who invited you? Jamal's mother echoed from the living room. Yes, Jamal replied. She and Arthur invited me to have lunch with them today. And what are they having for lunch? Mom asked. They won't have pork, Jamal answered. They know I can only eat fish at their place, so Arturina's mom promised to make fried fish and potatoes. Okay, go ahead, Mom allowed. Yay, shouted Jamal and ran back to the front door. And I'll pick you up in about an hour, Mom said after him. We have to go to the store to get some essential groceries. Jamal ran out the gate of his cottage. Arthur lived next door, a few houses away. And in a couple of minutes Jamal was already standing on the porch of his buddy's house. He knocked. Come in, Arthur invited, seeing Jamal through the window. Jamal entered the kitchen. It's all right, I'm allowed, he said. I can have lunch at your place. All right, Arturina's mother responded. My mom promised to pick me up in an hour so we can get to the store before closing time, Jamal said. Then in about 5 minutes, go wash your hands and sit down at the table, said Arturina's mother. Lunch is almost ready. Arthur sat in his chair and looked at the book. Would you look at that? He called to Jamal. Jamal sat down beside him and began to look at the picture with him. It was a book about whales. The picture showed a ship and a huge whale beside it. Arthur, please take the juice out of the refrigerator, Mom asked. Arthur handed the book to Jamal and went to get the juice. A minute later, after washing their hands, the boys were already sitting at the table. Son, you get the juice while I get the fish and chips, Mom said. A roar filled the glasses with orange juice. And his mother placed 2 large plates of freshly fried fish and steaming potatoes in front of the boys. Thank you, Jamal said. Then he said, Bismillah, and proceeded to eat. And we have chocolate cake for sweetness, said my mother. Yay, Arthur rejoiced. But he still kept looking at the book, holding it in his lap. Arthur, put the book aside while you eat, Mom said. Arthur reluctantly put the book aside. And the boys began to talk about whales. Having finished their delicious meal, the boys put the plates in the sink. Meanwhile, Arturina's mother sliced the cake. She hadn't had time to put it on the plates yet when the doorbell rang. She put the cake away and went to open it. Jamalina's mother stood in the doorway. Hello, Miriam, please come in, said Arturina's mother. Have a seat at the table. We're just about to start dessert, she invited. How about you put the potatoes and fish first, she added. No, thank you, Nadia, Jamalina's mother retorted. I just had lunch. I just came a little early to drop off those magazine books you asked for. And to explain if anything isn't clear. Arturina's mother was a widow. She and her son had only recently moved here to this neighborhood. And having made friends with Jamalina's mother and the other neighbors, who were mostly Muslim, she became very interested in Islam herself and asked for something to read for beginners. Oh, yes, thank you very much, Arturina's mother said. Wait a minute, I'll just pour the boys some tea. She placed a cup of tea and a saucer with a piece of cake in front of the boys. Jamal raised his spoon and said, Bismillah, and began to eat the cake. What is it? Arthur asked. What do you mean? Jamal didn't understand. Yes, I mean that word, some mysterious word you always say before you eat, Arthur explained. Oh, I see, Jamal stretched out. He thought for a second. It means, now I can eat. It's Arabic. And he went on eating the cake. When he finished his sweet, Jamal thanked Arturina's mother for his lunch and went to the exit. In a couple of minutes he was already sitting in the car. I heard what you said to Arthur, his mother said, smiling. Do you really think Bismillah means, now I can eat? Of course, Jamal replied. We always say it before we eat. But I say those same words when I get behind the wheel of the car, said Mom. Yes, indeed, Jamal wondered. Now he wasn't sure he was right about the translation of those words. And the words, Al-hamdulillah, what do you think they are then? Mom continued. Well, it's quite simple, Jamal quickly retorted. It means well, fine. Mom shook her head disapprovingly. I wonder if you know what astagfirullah means. I think I do, Jamal said, but without the same confidence in his voice. Judging by the look on his mother's face, his answers didn't seem right at all. I guess it means, I'm sorry. But no, it probably means, bad boy. Mom sighed and thought about it. Then, as if remembering something, she laughed. You're not quite right, she said, glancing at her son with a smile. I think you need a little help with your Arabic. It's not your fault, though. We'd better talk about it at home. That same evening, Mom turned to Jamal's dad. We must make it clear to him what all these words mean, she said. Because even though he uses them, he doesn't know exactly what they mean. For example, Jamal said that astagfirullah means bad boy. Dad laughed. It's our fault, he pronounced. I mean, we say astagfirullah to Jamal at times when he misbehaves. This is our fault. I'll try to explain it to him now. Dad went looking for Jamal. Not finding him in the nursery, Dad went out into the yard. Jamal was swinging in the yard on the swing. Daddy, swing me, Jamal asked when he saw his father. With pleasure, Dad responded. He went over and started swinging the swing. But before he did so, he said, Bismillah. The swing soared upward. Wow! Jamal exclaimed contentedly. Son, do you know why I just said, Bismillah? Dad asked. We always say it when we start doing something, Jamal retorted. That's right, said Dad. Then you must realize that it doesn't mean, I can eat, do you? Of course. It means, I'm getting started. No, dear, Daddy said. It means in the name of Allah. Muslims say it when they begin anything, even if it's just turning a page or gargling their throats, let alone anything more significant. And saying it gives Allah's help and blessing. I think I knew that, I just forgot, Jamal tried to justify himself. Perhaps, Daddy said. But now you should remember the meaning and say, Bismillah, not just for nothing, but with the very intention that you are embarking on something, in the name of Allah. Having said this, the father proceeded to rock his son. As he did so, he asked Jamal another question, and when you break something, what should you say? Astagfirullah, the son replied. And what do those words mean? Dad asked. Probably, sorry, or something like that, Jamal replied. Almost right, Dad said. Specifically it means, forgive me, Allah. It should be said when you've done wrong. Right. I knew it. Jamal exclaimed. And that doesn't mean, bad boy, at all, does it? No, Jamal retorted. But sometimes you and Mom use the word just like that, so I got confused. I know, Dad pronounced. It's our mistake, and from now on you'll remind us if we make one again, okay? That was something new. So Dad and Mom can make mistakes, too. And Daddy himself asks to be corrected. Jamal liked this kind of daddy idea. Of course, Daddy, my son replied. Daddy smiled. And they say in case they hear the right answer? Al-hamdulillah, Jamal answered without hesitation. Correct. What does that mean? Jamal wondered. He wanted so badly, at least this time, to give the right answer. He thought for so long that his swing almost stopped. I remember, Jamal exclaimed cheerfully. It means, all glory to Allah. Alhamdulillah. Dad rejoiced. Right. And we also say it in response to the question, how are you, how is your health, etc. You always have to answer, Alhamdulillah. By this point, the swing had finally stopped. Looking at Jamal, Dad smiled mysteriously. You know what I want to offer you? Daddy began. What? Jamal asked. Let's make a deal with you about this. If we forget to say any of these words at the right time, or use them incorrectly, you remind us, and we in turn will remind you. How's that working out for you? Deal, Jamal replied, at that moment feeling like an adult. He should be, now that he could help his parents. And they would help him not to make mistakes in the future. Dad put his hand on his son's shoulder. Now let's go inside, it's time for evening namaz, Daddy said. It's a reminder, isn't it? Jamal smiled. Yes. It's also a kind of reminder, Papa replied. They entered the house. After reciting namaz as a family, they sat down at the table to eat dinner. On the way to the kitchen, Dad asked his son something very important. He asked Jamal to say, Bismillah, and a special dua that he had written on a piece of paper before he began to eat. Everyone sat down at the table. And when all the food was served, Jamal said, Bismillah, and everyone followed Jamal in repeating the dua that was said before the meal. Allahumma, barik lana fi ma razaqtana wa qina azaban nar. Which translates to, O Allah, bless us with what you gave us and keep us from the fire of hell. That evening, Jamal found the food particularly delicious.